What do you know about Buddhism and Islam? Have you ever heard of Sikhism? How did Mormonism begin? What about Hinduism? What do you know about Muhammad or Jesus? Have you ever heard of Greater Eid or Passover? What do you know about the world's religions? In 2007, USA Today headlines proclaimed that Americans get an F in religion. The article chronicled how 60% of Americans can't name 5 of the 10 commandments, and half of high school seniors think Sodom and Gomorrah were married. 3 years later, in 2010, the Pew Research Center conducted its Religious Knowledge Survey with 32 questions on religious traditions and religion's role in the world. Of the 32 questions, the average person answered only half, 16, correctly. Americans get an F in religion again. Okay, so most Americans are getting an F in religion, but now it's time to see how you can do and assess your religious literacy. So it's time to pause the video and take either the religious literacy quiz developed by religion scholar Stephen Prothero or the Pew Research Center's Religious Knowledge Survey. To access the quizzes, please go to our Class Sakai page and then record your results, your score on your research report. Welcome back. How'd you do on that religious literacy quiz? Were you able to name the 4 Gospels? Could you identify a sacred text of Hinduism? Did the religious literacy quiz tell you that you were religiously literate or that you needed to improve a little in this area? Through these quizzes, many of us realize that we know some things about religion, but perhaps not as much as we had hoped. So what do we do? What exactly is religious literacy? How do we increase our knowledge about the world's religions? According to Wikipedia, religious literacy is the knowledge of and ability to understand religion. This is a pretty broad definition that encourages us to learn more, but provides little in terms of a concrete path. Even Wikipedia admits that this entry needs some help. Stephen Prothero, who wrote one of the quizzes that many of you took, defines religious literacy as the ability to understand and use in one's day-to-day life the basic building blocks of religious traditions. He goes on then to identify some of those building blocks as key terms, symbols, doctrines, practices, sayings, characters, metaphors, and narratives. This definition helpfully identifies specific categories of knowledge that we can work on gaining. It also focuses our attention on the importance of core content knowledge about religious traditions. Scholar Eugene Gallagher responded to Prothero's definition of religious literacy. He acknowledged that core content knowledge is important, but he said it isn't enough. Gallagher argues that to gain religious literacy, we must also learn how religious people use factual information, such as key terms, symbols, doctrines, practices, those components of Prothero's definition. And he said we need to know how people use that information to orient themselves in the world, to express individual and group self-understanding, and give their lives direction and meaning. So right now we have 2 foundational components to a definition of religious literacy. 1, learning content knowledge about the tradition, and 2, according to Gallagher, an understanding of what those terms, concepts, and categories mean within the context of a particular group of religious people. So that's a great foundation on which to build our definition. But the Center for Religious Literacy adds a few other components for us to keep in mind. Gaining knowledge about religious traditions and their context necessitates having an understanding of religion in general. In other words, to understand the scriptures, origin stories, or even the prophet of religion, we need to have some introduction to the academic study of religion. We'll be talking about the academic study of religion throughout the semester. It's a concept that's also covered in your Introduction to Religious Studies textbook in Chapter 2. For our definition of religious literacy, then, it means adding an understanding of religion in general to Prothero's point about content knowledge and Gallagher's argument about contextual knowledge. Our definition of religious literacy needs one more component. All of the actions that we've talked about so far are all the components of our definition, from content knowledge, contextual knowledge, an understanding of the academic study of religion and how religion works in the world. All of those depend upon us cultivating certain habits of mind. A mindset of disinterest and superiority will not result in religious literacy. Rather, we must cultivate a mindset of curiosity, openness, and reflection toward our own religions, if we have them, and toward the religions of others. Openness and curiosity will help us learn and ask questions. It also necessitates that we practice hypoche, a Greek word that means suspension. And in this case, it means a selective suspension of judgment about certain truth claims. It means putting aside whether or not you think a certain religious claim is true or false, and instead asking, how did this claim come to be? Why do some find this claim compelling? Other questions could be, how is this claim similar to or different from that of another religion? And what does this claim tell us about this particular religious community? There are lots of other questions that we can ask that will help us embrace this robust definition of religious literacy. So gaining religious literacy depends on us cultivating a certain habit of mind.